Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Imagine being targeted by, well, a really powerful organization, one that will stop at absolutely nothing to silence you. I mean, even framing you for bomb threats, it sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
It really does. Almost unbelievable.
But it's a true story, a kind of chilling thriller, really, packed with espionage, deception, and just this incredible fight for survival. If this kind of deep dive into, real-life intrigue grabs you, please do hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us bring more stories like this to you.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
So today we're diving deep into The Unbreakable Miss Lovely by Tony Ortega. You'll find a link for it down in the description.
Great book. Really compelling.
It absolutely is. And it's not just a gripping story, right?
Yeah.
It digs into some big themes. The abuse of power, how vital free speech is, and just, wow, the resilience someone can have when facing just incredible adversity.
Human spirit stuff.
Exactly. This book was actually shared with us by one of you listening, so thank you for that. And we're going to unpack the incredible, frankly terrifying ordeal of Paulette Cooper.
Yeah.
She was a journalist who became this major target of the Church of Scientology.
And Ortega, the author, he really did his homework. He used tons of sources, interviews with people involved, FBI documents that got declassified, court records. It paints a pretty shocking picture.
Yeah, meticulously researched. So our mission today, basically, understand the key events of what Paulette went through and, figure out what we can take away from her fight against this really formidable group.
Right. Where do we start?
Okay, let's dig in. Who was Paulette Cooper before she ended up in the crosshairs?
Okay, so back in the late 1960s, early 70s, Paulette Cooper was this really driven, ambitious journalist making her way in New York City.
Right.
Her early career was actually pretty diverse. She spent time at BBDO, the ad agency,
Hey.
worked on the Campbell's soup account. Remember that campaign, 1 + 1 = new?
Yeah.
Encouraging people to mix soups.
Vaguely, yeah. That was her.
That was her idea. Got written up in Madison Avenue magazine, actually.
Huh. Interesting start. But it sounds like advertising wasn't quite adventurous enough for her. I read something about some unusual travel.
Oh, yeah. Definitely adventurous. She actually became the world's first female stowaway on a cruise ship.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously. And then, of course, being a journalist, she wrote about the whole experience. Kind of shows her personality, right? Willing to push boundaries, get the story firsthand.
Definitely show some guts.
Mhm.
So how did this adventurous journalist first cross paths with L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology?
Her first sort of inkling came from Martin Gardner's book, Fads and Fallacies in the Name of Science.
Okay.
Gardner was pretty critical of Dianetics, which was Hubbard's earlier thing, before Scientology. Gardner basically called Hubbard a crank, lumped him in with other people he saw as pushing pseudoscience.
Right. I know Gardner's work. Critical stuff.
Exactly. And Paulette read this way back in 1957. She was only 15.
15. Wow.
Yeah. And, she loved reading, was curious. So that planted a seed, maybe a bit of skepticism about Hubbard early on.
And that seed grew, obviously. Led her to investigate and eventually write her own book.
Precisely. Fast forward to the late 60s, early 70s, and she writes The Scandal of Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a critical book, no punches pulled.
Yeah.
And that book, that's what really set off the Church of Scientology's intense, just unbelievable campaign against her.
Right. Okay. This is where it gets really dark. This wasn't just like bad press releases. They had an actual operation with a name, didn't they?
They did. A really chilling name. The church orchestrated this whole campaign specifically to discredit Paulette Cooper, to silence her. And they called it Operation Freakout.
Operation Freakout.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, it sounds sinister.
It was.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just, PR spin. It was planned, multi-pronged, designed to just break her.
And it really shows something, doesn't it? How powerful groups sometimes react to criticism, not by debating, but by trying to destroy the critic.
Exactly. Harassment, legal tricks.
Yeah.
It's a playbook, sadly. Highlights how vulnerable individuals can be.
So, multi-pronged.
Mm-hmm.
What did that actually look like? What kind of tactics did they use in Operation Freakout?
Oh, it was insidious, truly. One of the most shocking things, framing her for bomb threats.
Framing her.
That somehow got hold of her personal stationery. The book suggests maybe through her cousin Joy Heller, possibly.
Okay.
Then they typed bomb threats to Scientology offices on her stationery and mailed them. The goal was obviously to make it look like she did it.
That's next level. And this fake evidence, it actually worked. She got arrested.
It worked. Based on those planted threats, Paulette was arrested, indicted for making the threats. And then, when she denied it, which was the truth, they hit her with perjury charges.
Oh, my.
The toll on her,
Yeah.
emotionally, psychologically, it was immense. The book mentioned she actually contemplated suicide during this time.
Wow. Just hearing that, it really drives home the human cost, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you even keep going through something like that?
It's hard to imagine.
And besides these terrifying legal attacks, they were hitting her from other angles too, right? Trying to just dismantle her life.
Oh, absolutely. It was relentless harassment, surveillance, threatening phone calls. She suspected her phone was tapped.
Which it probably was.
Which it later turned out it was. They distributed these smear leaflets, just full of lies, all around her apartment building, in her neighborhood. And there was this underground scandal sheet that circulated even wilder, totally false accusations about her.
Living under that constant pressure, that fear. And it wasn't just external stuff. They tried to get inside her life, too.
Yeah.
Infiltrate her circle.
That's right. These two women, Margie Shepard and Paula Tyler, almost certainly Scientologists, they deliberately became her friends.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah. The idea was probably to gather information, maybe plant more evidence, and then later, a guy named Don Alverzo, using the alias Jerry Levin, he actually moved in with her as a roommate.
He lived with her.
Lived with her. The
Right.
belief is his whole purpose was to spy on her, gather anything they could use against her.
So she's in her own home, and the people around her might be actively trying to destroy her. It's like a spy novel, but horrifyingly real.
Absolutely.
And that scheme with the Arab consulates, that sounds particularly twisted.
Oh, it was just Machiavellian. The plan, cooked up by the Guardian's office, was to mail a threatening letter to an Arab consulate, but make it look like it came from Paulette's address.
Okay.
And they faked a phone call, too, trying to link her to Israeli intelligence and this bombing threat against the consulate, just paint her as completely unstable and dangerous.
The Guardian's office. You've mentioned them a couple of times. Tell us more about who they were, like the church's own intelligence agency.
That's a pretty good way to put it. The Guardian's office, or JINGO, was basically Scientology's intelligence and PR arm. Think like internal police, spies, and public relations all rolled into one. And these attacks on Paulette, they weren't random. They were planned, executed by the JINGO, under orders from L. Ron Hubbard and his wife, Mary Sue Hubbard.
So top-level stuff.
Definitely. And it's important to know, Operation Freakout wasn't an isolated thing. It was part of this much bigger, much more sinister program called the Snow White program.
No web program.
Yeah, which involved, like, widespread infiltration of government agencies, stealing documents, all sorts of illegal activities, targeting anyone Scientology saw as an enemy. Paulette was just one target, albeit a major one.
So this wasn't just about one journalist. It was systemic.
Right.
Wow. But despite facing all this coordinated onslaught, Paulette fought back, right? She didn't just fold.
She fought back with incredible determination. It's truly amazing. Facing prison, constant harassment, she refused to be silenced.
What do you think kept her going? It says so much about, human resilience.
It really does. She hired lawyers, good ones, like Paul Reingold, Charles Stillman, later Virgil Roberts, who really went to bat for her. And she had support from friends like Barbara Lewis and other journalists who saw what was happening was just fundamentally wrong.
Right. Now, this whole saga involved a lot of people, some helping Paulette, some definitely not. Can we touch on a few of the key players?
Sure. There's L. Ron Hubbard Jr., known as Nibs, later Ron DeWolf. His relationship with his father was very strained. He actually worked with Paulette on a book for a while. And interestingly, there was some suspicion the wording in those forged bomb threats sounded a bit like his writing style.
Okay. Who else?
James Meisler. He was a Scientology PR guy, pretty aggressive in trying to intimidate other critical authors, and he was vocal in accusing Paulette of the bomb threats.
Right.
Robert Kaufman, another author targeted by Scientology. He was a friend of Paulette's, so he really understood the kind of pressure she was under.
Must have been good to have someone who got it.
Definitely. Michael Sanders, he worked at the Justice Department, apparently gave Paulette some useful info, kind of discreetly.
Yep.
John Seffern, a lawyer for some other people suing Scientology, had a huge stash of Scientology documents. But later, he got tangled up with this operative who was actually working against Paulette.
No.
Yeah, a guy named Richard Bast. He pretended he was helping Paulette fight the church, but secretly, he was working for them, recording their conversations.
Unbelievable. Deception everywhere.
Pretty much. Then there's Michael Flynn, another key lawyer who eventually represented Paulette and others suing Scientology. Maury Breacher, an editor at the National Enquirer, actually gave Paulette writing assignments when things were really tough for her professionally. A lifeline.
That's got to hear some support there.
Yeah. Elaine Vietz, a reporter who wrote about life on Hubbard's ship, the Apollo.
What?
Dr. Arnoldo Bengelsdorf, he was the psychiatrist the court ordered Paulette to see. She ended up trusting him, and he seems to have helped her cope with the immense psychological stress.
Right.
And the book also mentions David Miscavige, who was then a sort of rising figure in Scientology.
Yeah.
Obviously becomes much more prominent later.
Quite the cast of characters. So, with all this going on, all the lies and infiltration, how did the truth about the frame-up finally surface? How did she get vindicated?
The big break came in 1977. The FBI raided Church of Scientology offices in LA and DC.
A raid. Why?
It was part of investigating the Snow White program, the infiltration stuff. And during these raids, they seized just tons and tons of internal documents.
Okay.
And buried in those documents, detailed plans and records for Operation Freakout. Proof. Irrefutable evidence of the conspiracy against Paulette, laying out exactly what they did. It finally showed she was telling the truth all along.
Wow. So the documents just laid it all bare. What happened then? Consequences.
Oh, yeah. Big consequences. The discovery led to more legal action. Mary Sue Hubbard and several other high-ranking borough officials were indicted, convicted actually, for their roles in Snow White and related crimes, including the stuff against Paulette.
So finally some accountability.
Finally, the truth about how Paulette was framed became public. Her story even got featured on 60 Minutes. There's this moment where the church spokesman at the time, David Gaiman, is shown the actual documents on camera. He just looks stunned. Couldn't deny it.
Vindication. But after years of this fight, did she finally reach some kind of closure with the church legally? A settlement?
Yes, she did, actually, back in 1976, before the FBI raid fully exposed everything, but after years of fighting her case. Paulette settled her lawsuits against Scientology.
Okay. What were the terms?
Well, part of the deal was she had to agree not to republish the Scandal of Scientology, and she couldn't comment on it publicly anymore.
So she was silenced in a way, even in victory.
Kind of. In return, the church paid her outstanding legal fees, which were substantial. So it ended the intense legal battle. But yeah, it came at the cost of her ability to speak freely about her own book and experiences, at least contractually. A bittersweet ending to that chapter.
What happened to Paulette after that? Did she manage to move on, keep writing?
She did. Despite everything, all the trauma, she continued her writing career. She later married a man named Paul. The book touches on her reflections looking back on it all. It's clear it was a defining, harrowing experience.
Understandably.
And sadly, yeah, several of the other figures in this story, Nibs, John Suffern, Robert Kaufman, they've passed away since then.
Paulette Cooper's story is just, it's incredible.
Wow.
And deeply disturbing. What do you see as the main takeaways, the bigger lessons here?
I think it's a really stark, powerful example of how far powerful organizations might go to crush dissent. It just hammers home how vital a free press is, and the right for individuals to speak out, to criticize, without fearing that kind of terrifying retaliation.
Yeah.
It shows how vulnerable critics can be when facing powerful institutions, and it reminds us we always need to be vigilant about protecting those basic rights, you know? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, they're not guaranteed.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly gripping and I think really important deep dive into the Unbreakable Miss Lovely. Thank you for taking this journey with us. What part of Paulette Cooper's story hit you the hardest? Or what was the most shocking revelation for you? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely share your takeaways.
Please do. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you found this story as compelling as we did, please share this deep dive with others who might appreciate it. And now, maybe a final thought to leave you with. Think about the power that information holds and the extreme lengths some people, some organizations will go to control it. What responsibility do we all have, really, to seek out the truth and maybe, more importantly, to support those who dare to speak it, even when they're facing immense pressure, something to chew on.